In a dusty, bustling corner of Accra, there lived a homeless woman named Agatha. She wasn't exactly what you'd call normal. The townspeople referred to her as the strange woman, though, truth be told, they knew little about her life. She spent most of her days fetching water from the well and washing clothes for the locals in exchange for food. Life was tough for Agatha, but she managed until one fateful night when things took a dark turn. One night, when Agatha was sleeping in the abandoned store by the market, a group of men found her and assaulted her. It was a terrible act, but no one said much about it, perhaps because Agatha was always a little offbeat, and no one really understood her. Word about the incident spread, but in true village fashion, it was whispered and forgotten. Months passed, and then one afternoon, as Agatha was trudging to the well, her belly started to grow at an alarming rate. Before anyone could blink, it was obvious. Agatha was pregnant. People scratched their heads, thinking, when did this happen? Who's the father? But Agatha didn't talk. She didn't ask for help. She simply kept fetching water and doing her chores like nothing was different. Then, one fateful afternoon, as Agatha bent over the well with her swollen belly, she began to act strangely. Her body stiffened, her eyes glazed over, and she stumbled. Women nearby quickly realized what was happening. Agatha's in labor. One cried, and a group of them rushed her to the hospital. That evening, Agatha was returned to her ramshackle home with a newborn baby boy in her arms. People couldn't understand it. She wasn't normal. She was a little off. But she was a mother now, and despite her oddities, she cared for her baby with a fierce, protective love. No one dared to touch her child. The moment anyone even glanced at the baby, Agatha would snap, her eyes turning wild. She wasn't playing. Weeks passed. The town went about its business. With one oddity, Agatha never left the house. She never let the baby out of her sight. Then, one day, something strange happened. The Waki seller, Auntie Akos, who had known Agatha for years, noticed that she hadn't come by for her usual bowl of rice and beans. She sent a few people to check on her. When they entered Agatha's little room, they froze. The smell hit them first, a pungent, decaying odor. There, in the middle of the room, was Agatha, lifeless, and beside her, her baby, cold and silent. They rushed to send the bodies to the mortuary, but that wasn't the end. Oh no. That very evening, people started seeing strange lights flickering in Agatha's room, and the sound, the eerie cry of a baby. The next night, curious and terrified, villagers gathered outside her house. They whispered among themselves, "What is happening? Was she a witch?" But no one dared to go inside. They just waited in silence until suddenly there she was, walking down the street in her white gown, with her baby in tow. She looked wrong. Her body was pale. Her eyes were black holes of nothingness, and her lips were thin and cracked. And the baby? It didn't cry, it didn't move, it was as still as a doll. Agatha walked to the Waki stall where the entire town had gathered. Auntie Akos was frozen with fear, her spoon halfway to her mouth. In a swift moment, the entire town scattered. People jumped into bushes, children screamed, and Agatha, dead or whatever she had become, stood at the stall, motionless, staring into the distance. She didn't speak, she didn't beg, but the air around her was thick with anger. It was like she was looking for something or someone. Something about her presence made the hairs on the back of everyone's necks stand up. Rumor had it that Agatha wasn't just any poor, homeless woman. No, she had been assaulted, and something dark had happened to her. The whispers said she was seeking revenge. But revenge for what? For who? For days, the strange lights appeared in her room, and the baby's cries echoed through the town. But Agatha herself was nowhere to be seen. Until one night, nearly a month later, she appeared again, sitting on the ground in front of Auntie Akos's wacky stall, the baby in her lap, staring blankly ahead. Auntie Akos had had enough. She couldn't take it anymore. It was bad for business, bad for her nerves, and, truth be told, bad for the entire town. So she went to the village elder, a wise man named Osei, who was known for handling matters that the regular people couldn't. Osei brought a man with him, a spiritual leader who had lived through things most people couldn't even imagine. The man listened to the tale and then said, "This woman, Agatha, is not a woman at all. She is a wandering spirit, a lost soul. She died a violent death and now she is seeking peace." The elder and the spiritual leader gathered the townspeople and performed a ritual. They offered prayers, sacrifices, and something more. The ritual was long, and no one dared move. The very next morning, it was reported that two men, local troublemakers who had been rumored to have been involved in Agatha's assault, had gone mad. They ran through the streets, babbling nonsense before disappearing into the wilderness. They never returned. From that day forward, Agatha and her baby were never seen again. The lights in her room went out. The baby's cries ceased. Peace returned to the town. But people still talk about Agatha sometimes. You'll hear the older folks whisper, "Do you remember that woman with the strange baby? Do you think she's really gone?" And if you listen closely at night, sometimes, just sometimes, you might hear the faint sound of a baby crying in the distance.